planet is host to an impressive variety of weather patterns. But few strike terror like a hurricane. When these storms threaten us, scientists rely on the experience and courage of the hurricane hunters. In May of 2015, St. Johns County was honored with a visit by the hurricane hunters. Homeowners, residents, and school children gathered at the Northeast Florida Regional Airport to see the planes, meet the crew, and learn more about how to protect their lives and property from the threat of hurricanes.
We want to bring this incredible flying laboratory with us and the brave men and women who take it into hurricanes and bring the families and especially the kids out to see the technology and talk with the pilots.
This is Captain Card. He's our navigator. So the crew makeup of the plane, we have 2 pilots, a navigator, a weather officer, and we have a drop-on operator who actually drops a piece of equipment that gets temperature, pressure, winds from the aircraft to the surface of the water.
So we put it down in there, shoots out of the bottom of the airplane. Yep, something like that. Any questions?
The hurricane hunters primarily go out during hurricane season, and our main mission is to find the direct center of a hurricane. Every storm is different, every flight is going to be different, but it can get a little bumpy sometimes, or it can be completely calm. For me, it's always really important to be able to go out there and know that what I'm doing matters.
Without the aircraft, for landfalling systems, we would have to estimate the hurricane's strength and size by satellite, but we can get the real information from inside the hurricane from these aircraft. And the data from the aircraft, when they go into the eye of the hurricane, are bounced off the satellite straight into the laps of the hurricane specialists at the National Hurricane Center, and that directly influences our intensity forecasts and our forecast of how big the hurricane is going to be, and that affects our forecasts and especially our warnings for coastal areas, and certainly affects the decisions made by local emergency managers here in St. Johns County.
This is the first time the NOAA hurricane hunters have visited St. Johns County and St. Augustine, Florida. We were very excited when we received the invitation that the hunters wanted to bring the 2015 East Coast Hurricane Awareness Tour to us. St. Johns County sits along the Atlantic coastline. We have 42 miles of coastline, so we are vulnerable to hurricanes, even though we haven't had one directly impact St. Johns County since 1964 with Hurricane Dora.
Hurricane Dora was a high-end Category 1 or a low-end Category 2 with sustained winds above 74 to 84 miles an hour. It did produce some pretty good storm surge up from St. Augustine all the way up to Duval County and Nassau County. In St. Johns County, we have several hazards, especially living in a beautiful coastal area like this. And one of the biggest threats is storm surge. Other hazards associated with tropical storms are heavy rainfall, and also tornadoes, and as well as those strong winds associated with the hurricane itself. It is time for people to recognize other hazards that have happened around the country, other hurricanes that have happened around the country, and take heed of what happened in those particular areas that could happen here. It only takes one to change a community forever.
What human nature tends to do is make us look for information to convince ourselves we don't have a hurricane problem. And that's the problem with hurricanes. They don't come around to your town very often, but when they do, they're really bad. And so if that hurricane does come to your town this year, you're going to really wish that you had planned ahead, because the things you really need to do to get ready for the hurricane and the aftermath to recover quickly are going to be far more difficult, if not impossible to do, when the hurricane's on your doorstep. Find out today if you live in a hurricane evacuation zone. And if you do, figure out where you'd go and how you'd get there if your emergency managers in St. Johns County tell you to leave.
You can find that information out on the St. Johns County Emergency Management website by going to the My Evacuation Zone tool. After you find out your evacuation zone, you then need to make a plan. What are you going to do if you are ordered to evacuate? Where are you going to go?
Your first choice should be friends and family. You don't want to necessarily evacuate someplace that's expensive like a hotel if you can't afford it, and you don't want to go any further than you have to. So if you have friends or family that are outside the evacuation zone, go there. If you are late to evacuate, you might have to go to a public shelter and then move from there after the storm.
It's important if we have a tropical storm or a hurricane in St. Johns County that people are able to take care of themselves after the storm, to have bottled water, canned food, and manual can opener, all their important papers, to be able to take care of their family. It may take government officials 24, 48 hours to be able to hand out water and food, so they need to be able to take care of themselves if we have long-term power outages and their utilities do not function.
It's very important to have a no-weather radio to alert you to not only watches and warnings, but advisories, severe thunderstorms, flooding. If something's threatening your house, it will alarm you, it will wake you up out of your sleep, and you can take action by listening to what the broadcast brings to you.
Go get the supplies that you would desperately need to get through the storm and the potentially nasty and lengthy aftermath. Because if you wait until the hurricane's on our doorstep, and then you start to go shopping, then you're going to be waiting in these really long lines, you're going to get all aggravated, and when you get to the front of the line, they might be out of the stuff you really need. So go shopping way in advance.
Pets are a very important part of our families, and we want to make sure that we also have a pet plan. So if you plan to go to a shelter, you would want to go to one of the 2 pet-friendly shelters that we have in St. Johns County, and that is Southwood Elementary or Timberland Creek Elementary, and you can bring your pet with you. You also have to make a disaster kit for your pet, so you want to make sure you have their food, medication, a crate, they have all their proper shots, and you can bring your pet with you to the shelter.
Go visit your insurance agent, make sure you have all of the insurance coverage you need, whether you rent or own, and make sure you've got flood insurance that's not a standard part of homeowners' policies.
All of that information you can find on the St. Johns County Emergency Management website.
Well, this awareness tour today has all kinds of interesting gadgets and planes and fire trucks and helicopters, and you see all kinds of really important organizations, government partners at the federal, state, and local level represented here today. But the most important partners on the ground here today are the children, who are going to be seeing the planes and meeting with all kinds of people and learning a lot of things, because these children, these partners of ours, are going to go home tonight and hopefully be really enthusiastic about what they saw and learned today, and say, you know, Mom, Dad, these hurricane hunters, these brave men and women are willing to fly into a hurricane to keep us safe. Why don't we do our part to get our family ready for the next hurricane?
Well, I learned all about the radar and how the hurricane hunters go in the hurricanes and the altitude that they fly in and how they take precautions. They've got like weird gadgety stuff, and then they got like a little thing that they stick inside a tube and it shoots out and it like goes inside the hurricane. To have a plan like before like a hurricane comes, like also known as Hurricane Katrina, that hurricane was like massive and it blew down houses and it made floods and it was just crazy. Because if you don't have a plan, you're gonna end up just kind of floating around somewhere. You can either evacuate or you could get supplies for the hurricane. You need a flashlight, batteries, food, and water.
Northeast Florida Regional Airport has been one of our biggest supporters and have been gracious with all their planning and assistance to bring this tour to St. Johns County for both our school children and the general public to be able to come out, tour the hurricane hunters, the C-130, the NOAA plane, and to tour all of our partner agencies, and also to collect hurricane information and disaster preparedness information as they go through the tour.
All the technology, all the data, all the forecasts, all the warnings, all the emergency management instructions that you receive here in St. Johns County, all of that is not going to be as effective as it could be if the individual families haven't prepared in advance, so that when all that information starts flowing when a hurricane is approaching, you know what you're going to do.